Welcome to the Balanced Body Health and Wellness Podcast, where Sherri Griggs and John Reynolds talk about balancing hormones, health, wellness, and your body. All right, we are here with Sherri Griggs from Balanced Body Health and Wellness here in Omaha, Nebraska. And it's a new year. 2025 is here, and it came down fast, I think, but as we in true form, we want to talk about being healthy in the new year and planning ahead. So we've got a lot to talk about here in the first of the year. Sherri, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, John. How are you?
Wonderful. It's always a great day here on the
That's
Balanced Body Health and Wellness Podcast.
that's right. Because we have fun, don't we?
We
We
do.
we just don't monologue and drone on. We have a lot of fun, and you have wonderful questions, which
Oh yeah.
definitely helps me so I don't forget to tell people things and so I don't get too technical, right?
Well, and I think that's what people look for. They look for somebody with not only the technical knowledge, but I think what makes this a fun conversation is because I don't know as much as you do, I start asking the questions that I think most people might have. So that's a good combo, I think. But
I agree.
not to dilly-dally. I mean, we're talking obviously as we do most weeks, hormones and hormone health. But I mean, since it's a new year, everybody's excited about trying to lose the extra ounces or pounds that they gained from the holidays, depending on how your body holds it. So, what do we have in store to talk about today?
Well, what everybody wants to talk about in the new year, weight loss. That's what everybody is. I'm going to lose weight this year. This is the year I'm going to do it. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And then they jump on the bandwagon and they do it for a little while. And then it just doesn't work out
Yeah. And
because
I
it,
think that there's a lot of reasons for that, though. Like, it's not always one thing that does it, but it's hard to lose weight.
it is. And you have to balance like, okay, sometimes I'm even like, well, life is short. So I'm going to eat this because I could die tomorrow. Right.
Mhm,
I mean,
mhm.
not to be morbid, but um, you can eat perfect and exercise and be absolutely do everything right. And we can't control what our body does naturally. We can do as much as we can to help it and to be healthy, but we don't have control over that.
And explain that a little bit further. Like, why don't we have control on things? Is it
Well,
is it purely based on lack of self-control?
no, not necessarily, because if we think about it, it's very interesting. I'm listening to a book right now about Suzanne Summers, and Suzanne Summers was one of the first um, Hollywood people to get out there and talk about hormones,
Mm,
right? And there was another book that she's put together, and it's so neat because she's actually interviewing one of the gentlemen, Terry Hertog, that is one of the top international anti-aging medicine physicians and hormone physician, and talks about how when we hit a certain age, all of us, our body just kind of stops doing the things it needs to do. Women, we stop making estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. Men stop making testosterone, right? And these things happen to our bodies. We can't control that. Essentially, as I used to say, well, it starts happening around 45 because we probably should die at 45 anyway, right? But modern medicine has allowed us to live longer.
mm,
And and what she says is that, well, really, that's because it was paving the way for the reproductive people from the very beginning of times
mhm.
to be the ones that were there. Where everything else starts to shut down on us, we start to lose. If I want to get into really cells and cellular senescence, cells dying and not being able to reproduce properly because we lose things like NAD. Um, we lose things like nitric oxide. So there are things in our body as we age that we start to lose, and our body starts to break down because of that. So you don't necessarily, unless you actively do something, have any control over that.
Mm. So, if our bodies are against us on this, and it seems like and we've talked about this before, where it's really just like Your own body will tell you what it needs and how it needs to kind of function going forward. When it comes to weight loss and managing that, what do we need to look out for? What do we need to plan for? What should we where do we start? I think that's people get overwhelmed with that as being sort of the main thing. That's what I always get overwhelmed with, is just how do I
Yeah.
start?
And how do I know what I'm doing is right? Right?
Mm,
Because you
mhm,
get all kinds of mixed messages. Fast. Don't fast. Eat every 2 to 3 hours. You should be doing hard cardio workouts. No, you shouldn't. You should only be doing resistance and weights.
mhm,
But you should eat this, not that. And it's just, um, you don't know where to start and you don't know what's right. So that's one of the things that I've always found throughout my career kind of frustrating, because this person went to this big national thing where you count points and they lost all this weight and the other person did it and they didn't. So why is that? Right?
mm,
So
mm,
why does it work for one person and not another? Because we're different. Our
mhm,
bodies have different needs. Now, granted, this works for the majority, but it still doesn't work for everybody.
mm,
What I've been finding in my past year of doing all of this hormone and detoxing and gut health is my people are losing weight without being on a weight loss weight loss program in quotations, right?
mm,
Because they're doing what their body needs. They're
yeah.
replacing things that are missing. We're getting rid of things that don't belong there, and we're helping the body work more efficiently, and they're losing weight.
That sounds awesome.
So I thought, huh, I think we could go further with this.
Yeah.
And and how can I go further with this so that I'm not like everyone else that puts a program together and then says, here, come fit into my program,
Yeah.
right? You're going to eat this much, you're going to drink this shake, you're going to take this pill, and you're going to lose weight. Oh, wait, or I'm just going to give you a shot and you'll be skinny forever.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work that way, right?
Right. It totally doesn't. I've tried a lot of things. And if that
It,
works, I would have found it, I think.
right. So, in the same voice of the making sure that if you need hormones, your replacement is specific to you, not me saying, well, this is your dose. Oh, the numbers look good. You're fine, right? Because your numbers can look good in normal lab values, but you don't feel good. So
Mhm.
just had a gal here this morning, high symptoms of low thyroid. She takes a thyroid pill. Her doctor said her numbers are fine. She's not fine. Okay.
Mm,
They weren't looking at the numbers properly. In fact, if you go to my website, Balance Body Medical, I have a blog this month about thyroid and why you need to check the whole panel and everything.
mhm.
So I decided, how can I make weight loss the same? And a couple years ago, I had actually done this genetic test on myself, and I remembered I had it, and I pulled it out and I said, that's it.
Mm.
I looked at this DNA, this genetic test, and it said, you don't metabolize caffeine properly. You are at risk of having imbalance of magnesium.
Huh.
You need to make sure you eat a higher calorie diet to lose weight. So it was very specific to what my body needed, which that's the opposite. Most people think high calorie diet. What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we used to say if you didn't eat every 2 to 3 hours, your metabolism would slow down, you go into starvation mode, and then you wouldn't lose weight. And I can remember being in my 20s and I did this, and I went to like almost 0 calories, and I ate soda crackers and I drank, I forget whatever it was we were drinking in those days, probably Diet Pepsi, and I gained weight. How did that happen? I wasn't really
Yeah.
eating anything.
Yeah.
So, 20 years later, do this DNA test and like, oh, that's how it happened. I need to make sure I eat plenty of calories and don't have a calorie deficit.
Hmm. I was gonna say, I think most people would be excited about hearing that, right? Because then it's like,
Right?
oh, I can diet by having high calories. And
Now,
maybe that's where it doesn't lose the momentum for them, right? Because
it
that's the
doesn't
other
lose
thing.
the momentum, but it also tells you, I mean, you still have to do it within reason. As I would say, if you're, I don't believe in calorie counting, because, like, here's 100 calories of ice cream and 100 calories of broccoli, right? You're going to
Mm-hmm.
get pretty filled up on that broccoli and that ice cream. You're going to want more because it's just such a tiny amount. So, but it will also tell you, well, should you even be eating dairy?
Hmm.
Should you even be eating that vegetable? Is that vegetable good for you?
Oh, no, that's interesting.
It is. It gets that detailed. And
Okay.
so it, and do you have intolerances to certain foods or certain substances? Like I said, for me, caffeine. Are you at risk of um, metabolic disease? And if you are, then we might know, which I would already find out in my regular lab panel, if you have insulin resistance. Insulin resistance makes you hold on to weight. So, in addition to looking at all those hormones, and insulin is an important hormone, it is a major hormone in our body. We still looking at your microbiome, because we know that is so important. That is the second brain in our body. And we need to make sure that's working properly and we're feeding it properly.
Hmm.
Now we're going to look at your genetics and what will help you specifically lose weight.
Now, is it a combo? So when you're suggesting doing this initial test, right,
Mhm.
like with your DNA, and then kind of making it a personalized plan, which I mean, knowing you and how we talk about not only hormones and hormone health, like everything is a personalized plan because what's right for me is different than what's right for anybody else.
Right.
But are you saying that you'll do the DNA test as well as the hormone testing because they're looking at two different angles on the same thing?
Correct. But not
Oh,
necessarily looking at the hormones, right?
yeah.
The hormone testing, we're looking at getting you balanced in your hormone. In fact, I'm going to call this the Balanced Body Blueprint.
Okay. Oh, hey, there you go.
Uh-huh. And we're looking at, I really had to convince my coach on that, but I convinced him.
I
I
love that.
convinced him. Yeah. Yeah. And because we still have to take those things into consideration, right? Like I said, part of aging is that we quit having enough of things we need in our body.
Mhm.
So yes, we need to do both of these, because I would only be doing it, excuse me, half-assed, if I did just the weight loss DNA, but I didn't consider your hormones. Because
Mhm.
cortisol can make you hold weight. If you're insulin resistant, it can make you hold weight.
Mhm.
So we need to get everything balanced and get the inflammation out of your body. I feel that just a straight weight loss program, just a straight count these points, or just a straight eat this diet, misses the whole big picture. They miss the big picture.
Mhm.
It's just a small portion. And that's why people get thin, but they're not healthy.
Mhm.
So my people will be healthy.
And a part of being healthy, it's to lose that weight.
Correct. If they need to lose that weight and to do it the right way. We know that the wonderful drugs, the GLP-1s for diabetes that are helping people lose weight, they can be really, really great if they're used properly, if people are taught how to eat, and they make sure they don't lose all their muscle and become what we jokingly call skinny fat. They
Yeah.
look thin, but they're all fat. They have no muscle. They don't know how to eat. I stop it, and immediately the weight comes back on plus more,
Mm. Mhm.
because they didn't get healthy, right? They just got thin. And there are programs where people do it right. They make sure you get enough protein. They keep an eye on your balance of your body composition, which I will do. And we make sure that you are becoming healthy. And of course, being healthy is part of having that body weight that's good for your joints, right?
Mhm.
Your muscles, your bones, your general health. And many times getting to there, that even helps your insulin resistance, or if you have elevated lipids, cholesterol, lowering your risk of cardiovascular disease, which we do for women with estrogen. We lower their risk of cardiovascular disease. But if we also give their body what it wants to be healthy, then it's twofold.
Hmm. This is making a lot of sense for me. We talk about it in past podcasts as like your hormones are, different parts of the car that help
Right?
you down the road. And if we think about weight loss as one of those things, you don't just start cutting, bits and bobs off the car to try to make it go faster. You got to have a nice running engine and wheels that are round and rolling along the road to help you get there faster.
Right. Exactly. And, when we did the car, cortisol being the motor and thyroid, the transmission, and the wheels are other hormones. And I said insulin is overall because it is such a major, major hormone in our
Mhm.
body.
Yeah. Okay. So with all of this, then it's twofold because you're
Yeah.
not just doing the weight loss part. You're also talking about managing your hormones, which in effect will help you sleep better. It'll help your stress levels. It'll help all the other things that we talk about in all the other podcasts, as
Right.
well as put you on track to know what your body might be needing to manage weight a different way.
Correct. So, for instance, and in the past, we've talked about hormones, we talked about menopause and men aging. For this
Mhm.
weight loss, you don't need to be at that age. I have a 20-year-old I'm helping right now, and
Mm,
she's insulin resistant,
mm,
right? She doesn't need any of those hormones, but she still needs hormone management with her cortisol and her insulin. Her thyroid was fine, thank goodness.
mm.
But those are all still hormones that will be involved in helping her lose her weight. So if people are listening and have thought, well, I've listened to this and, I'm not 45 years and older, I don't need my hormones looked at. This is
Yeah.
just a waste of my money and my time. And it's really not
Mm,
because you can have insulin resistance at any age and thyroid issues at any age, cortisol, and all of that. Insulin and cortisol, elevated levels of those two will make you hold on to weight and cause inflammation in your body.
mhm, mhm. And I mean, it's the old thing that we kind of talk about all the time too, where if it's something that you think or you've heard of and it makes sense because you're just like your body isn't feeling you know yourself and your body is feeling a little bit different and you bring it up to your provider and your provider as a general practice provider or whatever family medicine is like, well, all these things seem normal. They're not looking for this part, which is tough because it really does seem like a good plan for a lot of people because it's personalized. I think that's the biggest part. I mean, it always goes back to that to me. It's like the
Yeah.
thing that I always think about with these kind of weight loss programs and, sales funnels, if you will. It's tough because you can go on somebody's social and start hearing like what they're thinking about is going to be like the one thing that can cure all for everybody.
Yes. I did this and I did this diet and my weight came off in, 2 weeks and I looked like this in 2 weeks. Or
Mhm.
I went in this machine, just melted all the fat off of me and look at what I look like before and after. But what they don't include is probably there were other things involved,
Mhm.
right? They didn't just change how they ate. Now we know you can't out exercise a bad diet. So food is very, very, very important. That will be one of the things that we will be educating people on about their food. But we also, and let me circle back real quick when you talked about your regular provider.
Yeah.
I said to a gal today, I said, and she said, I have all these thyroid symptoms. I'm dragging rear end. I'm tired. My doctor said my thyroid numbers are good. Well, I said, would you have your doctor treat your heart? No, I'd go to specialists. I said, then your doctor's probably not the one to treat your hormones either.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
They never specialized in that. They didn't take extra training. They didn't get it in medical school. They don't teach us any of that stuff in medical school. So you have to have additional training to be an expert in that field.
Mhm.
So they're not checking those things. In fact, when she asked to have her hormones checked, the comment was, well, it doesn't really make a difference. I said, it does, but the problem is, yes, I am here. Oh, goodness. Your provider, my machine thought I said hello to it. Your provider doesn't know what to do with those numbers. So
Yeah.
it's not that they don't want to help you. It's that when they got the numbers, they're bound to do something about it if they're wrong, or if they're bad, or they're not in the normal, but they don't know what to do. So
Hmm.
they'd rather just not do the test than be backed into a corner of having to treat something they know nothing about.
Right.
So you don't have your normal provider, your traditional provider order an echocardiogram because
Mm.
they don't treat it, right?
Right.
So they're not going to order specialized tests. And that's the same way with this. Now, in the weight loss situation, there are so many people that want to lose weight and they want it to be easy and they want a quick fix. And so if I tell you, John, that I can give you this meal plan and I can guarantee you, if all you do is just cook this food that I'm going to ship to you every week,
Hmm.
you're going to lose weight. That sounds easy. You don't even have to go grocery shopping.
Yeah.
You're going to buy this stuff. You're going to spend a lot of money and it may or may not work for you.
That's sounding familiar.
Well, I did that once too, so I know.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And there was so much salt and so much crap in that food. It was so many years ago, right? Like 20 years ago. And,
Yeah.
thinking back, processed food is processed food.
Hmm. So leading back into it, this specialized test that tells you what your body kind of needs and how it goes. Like, what are I know that we talked about some of the things that it kind of comes with, but what is it really looking for? Like, is it or how does it share what personalization your body needs for like weight loss or whatever?
Okay. So looking at mine, here was a genetic results table, looked at my genetics, and it looked at 5 gene markers. Genetic risk of overweight, obesity. 2 of my markers had a negative effect, and 3 had a medium effect. That
Okay.
means I had those genetics to be overweight and obese.
Hmm.
But at the same time, my metabolic rate, I have a gene that has a very positive effect on my ability to burn calories at rest.
Interesting.
So if you think about that, that's kind of like the opposite. But here's the most interesting: weight loss capability during diet interventions. The gene for that, negative effect.
Huh.
So my ability to lose weight because of diet interventions had a negative effect. Then there was appetite, anxiety, feeling full. So it looks at they call them SNPs,
Hmm.
the different SNPs. And those particular SNPs are the ones that control that ability of your body,
That's so interesting.
isn't it?
Do you think that this is result from historically your ancestors and where they came from in some respect? Like, because I've done my own DNA test where it was like whichever one it was that told me historically where I came from. And I know that I do have some Pacific Islander, very minuscule amount, but I have a little bit of that in my gene pool.
Right?
So, you know, I wonder if how much that has not to blame Pacific Islanders for anything whatsoever, but I'm wondering if that's the sort of information it's looking at to tell you these markers.
Um, Not necessarily in a sense of what region or area, but it is looking at the DNA and the genetics. And yes, those are passed down. We
Hmm.
each, the mother and the father each gives us half of those, that DNA comes
Hmm.
together. And so it is passed down. Now, it just depends. Now, we can't say, I don't think we could say on genetic SNPs as far as looking at these to say, wow, that SNP comes from, or is a
Ireland.
result of having, right,
Yeah.
right? Because we don't, it's from the actual person itself. It's the
Mm,
actual, the
yeah.
chromosomes. within the DNA. So, we look at carbohydrate metabolism. I had a low efficacy.
Oh, for
So I can
carbs.
tell you, you'll like this.
Yeah, I will.
You're going to like this. This is a perfect example, guys. So I generally do a fairly low carb, complex carb. I eat that way, but I went on vacation
Mhm.
and I went on vacation to Europe. And they tell us that if you are gluten sensitive or avoid gluten, that you can go to Europe and eat it. So I did. So I went from a very low carb to a very high carb diet for 12 days.
Whoa.
And in 12 days, I did not gain an ounce or lose an ounce. My weight was exactly down to the zero point 0.3 ounces, the same,
Oh my gosh.
but I lost a pound of muscle and gained a pound of fat.
Interesting.
12 days.
Okay.
So that genetically says that follows the results of this here that says I'm not going to do well with carbohydrate metabolism for weight loss.
Yeah.
Obviously, 12 days of changing and adding carbs. And it was bread, guys. It was good bread too. Um,
I didn't question that at all. I mean, I
right?
figured that's what it
Yeah.
was.
I hadn't eaten any of that stuff in years. Um, but it made all the difference. I have a great fat burning metabolism. So you bet I put like good fats, ghee, things like that. Um, I'm really good with detoxification. It's a positive. I'm high efficacy. So this is the stuff that we'll look at for you
Hmm.
to decide.
I mean, shoot, that seems. I mean, that's the point, right? Is it being personalized? I keep coming back at that, and it makes sense for me. Now, as an aside, detoxification, I'm sure this is not what you meant, but I did a detox one time
Mhm.
and I failed it because I ate tacos instead of my drinks that I was supposed to be taking because tacos are so awesome. That's a completely different thing though. So the DNA telling you all of the specifics, giving you a heads up, and then obviously you're there to help unwind it because it sounds complex to me.
Mhm.
Because,
I'm
like
going to
I
help
said,
unwind it and make it simple,
I
right?
went right down the road of like a body detox, drinking, celery milk or whatever it was, which was awful.
Oh my God. And we don't do that anymore. We have so many things we do now that make it so easy to detox. It's just so easy. We're not
What?
making you drink celery water or this really weird. I did a detox. It was this really weird herb, and we could only eat this one kind of food, which in hindsight, this one kind of food was all rice. And I'm like, we now know if you're detoxing, you're not eating rice, you're not eating grains.
Hmm.
Rice is super high, brings blood sugar up really high on the glycemic index.
Oh.
But we didn't know in those days. And I just know that I didn't do well. I got dizzy, I was sick, I didn't feel good. Um, my people, when we do this, we call an elimination where we take out, the most inflammatory foods for 30 days. You do drink a shake that's actually really good. You're wondering how it can be good. That has maybe, 5 ingredients in it. It's bone broth protein, though, instead of whey or even pea protein. There's just, there are things that we know now that are just so much better. Again, focusing on healthy.
I mean, you said something really quick there. Is whey protein and pea protein no good anymore?
If it's a clean whey protein, but you have to make sure it's clean. Now, for me personally, whey protein really bugs my stomach.
Oh.
Um, and pea protein, it's not bad. It just tastes awful.
Oh,
So,
it still
yes,
does.
if you're a vegan, we can still do. I've still got that, you know, veggie plus that we can do that. But it doesn't always have all the amino acids that we really need.
Yeah.
And we know bone broth does, and it's clean, and it's just I like it because what I have here has, like I said, very few ingredients. Like, have you ever looked at a protein label? And if I haven't, I encourage you to just go to the store and just look at some of the labels. And the list is, 4 inches long of
Mm-hmm.
stuff, right? And a lot of it to keep it shelf stable and to help it mix better. And some of that stuff, I have no idea what it's there, maybe to make it taste better,
Mm.
but you know,
Make it Oh my God, I can't make it
proprietary,
proprietary. Yeah, thank you.
or to make it a pretty pink, and then they put, that red dye that causes cancer. Um, you know, and there's good stuff out there, don't get me wrong. I mean, there
Yeah.
is. You just have to look at your labels and know. And a lot of the meat based substitutes all have gluten in them. They have wheat in them. It's
Mm.
for the protein. So there's one out there I know of that doesn't, but or they have just a lot of ingredients in them that are processed.
Mm. Now this is going to be a weird question,
Okay.
but stay with me here.
Okay.
Do you think that these like proteins and shakes and mixes and stuff that have all these ingredients, do you think that they're similar to wine in that it's not just what you pay for is what you get, but there could be a couple good ones in like the reasonable pricing range, and then there's some in the top end that are like really, really good for you, like better? Is it comparable to that? Because that's the only way I can really explain it is like
And I
there's a
understand where you're going with that. Yeah.
okay.
It's really not with protein, because actually to process and make this, it's really expensive if they're using good ingredients,
Mm,
right? Because like if you're somebody that's trying to be quote clean and they're taking the whey, because whey is a milk derivative from a cow that's been eating corn, then you've got the inflammatory ingredients from the corn in your whey protein.
mm,
So a lot of your companies are you got to know they're going to source it, and that makes it harder to do.
mm. Dang it. I wish we had this conversation yesterday when I bought new whey protein.
Now you can read the label. It might be perfectly fine, John.
All right, I'm gonna read the label. I didn't do that because it was a lot of stuff I didn't recognize. So I figured it was
Uh-oh.
all the stuff that you said.
Well, we'll look at it. You can send it to me. I'll look at it
I'll
for you.
text you a picture.
Okay. That's perfect. Yeah.
All right. So the DNA test, hormone test, do they talk together in a way, or do you take the results side by side and kind of compare notes, or do they kind of tell you similar things?
Completely different things,
Hmm.
right? Because one is your genetics and what your body needs. The other are your hormones and what you're lacking to be balanced.
Mm. So it's almost like one's like a roadmap for just how your body would work best, and the other is maybe these things aren't in line.
Right. So we talked about lacking, right? Like losing things as we age. I made said NAD or nitric oxide are some of the
Mhm.
things for our cells to work better. We lose things as we age. Hormones we lose. We need to replace those. We need to replace these things that we're losing. And the genetic isn't about replacing. It's about giving your body what it needs to work at its best.
Hmm. I like that. All right. So okay. So we've taken the tests. Walk me through how this then kind of plays out. Is it that we sit down and go through everything and then just make a plan of attack on what's beneficial, or are there like supplements? Like, walk me through some of this.
So we will sit down, and as with the hormone, we'll figure out the hormones. What do we need to balance with hormones if we do? Right?
Mhm.
If there's no insulin resistance, which will keep you from losing weight, and there's no elevated cortisol, which will keep you from losing weight, then we go on to the next thing. And we look at your comprehensive blood panel. Well, that's insulin resistance would be in there, but we also want to make sure that your liver's working properly and your kidneys are working properly. And do you have any metabolic disease? Are you potentially have trouble with cholesterol or lipids? Are there things that are that you're already So we say not healthy, okay? Because we
Mm-hmm.
want to look at this first. Are you missing some supplements, vitamin B or vitamin D, some nutrients that you need? Do we need to replace those? Then we look at your gut, your microbiome. There are certain short chain fatty acids that have to do, and certain things that have to do with satiety and whether we feel hungry or not. So one of my gals that's been losing weight, she was missing a short chain fatty acid that had to do with hunger. So we gave her body what it needed to replace that short chain fatty acid, and she no longer has those hunger cravings.
Mm.
So we look at that, right? So we have to look at everything. That's why I say other things don't pay attention to that. Sometimes you're fighting your own body trying to lose weight when these things need to be fixed. Now, if you have an opportunistic bacteria or you have a gastric permeability, we know that the nutrients that you get, you're not able to use them properly because of these things. So do we need to fix that? Then
Then you get into the DNA.
Then we're going to get into the DNA. So we've got to make sure these things are fixed, right? And we may find by fixing these other things, you already start losing weight.
Huh.
Then, rather than just guessing what we say, well, let's see how you do on low carb, we will know, well, here's where we need to go. You need to probably follow this particular type of diet, which is low carb. Or the way of eating. I don't like to say diet, right? A way of eating, a lifestyle. Because you'll find if you don't, in 12 days, you can gain a pound of fat and lose a pound of muscle and still weigh exactly the same.
Yeah.
Right? Which is not very many days. That's 12 days. I mean, think about people who do this for months and then they wonder why they can't lose weight.
Yeah.
I barely eat anything. I only eat a couple meals a day. I eat one meal a day. And because that one meal a day is probably something very satisfying. Like I have one sandwich a day, that's all I eat. Well, there's your carbs and calorie restriction. You're not going to lose weight.
Yeah.
You're just not. Because your genetics say that.
Look, you still have to do it.
It's still some work, right?
You got to you got to put in the work, right?
I
It's
mean,
like,
change is work. Change is scary. People don't like change. Change can be stressful, and it will be change for you. It will be change, but it's not going to be shoved down your throat because this is what's worked for everyone.
and it might be a good way to do it too, because if you're going the way that your body needs, like you said, like once you have the test and you know that high calorie is better and bread is just not going to be helpful at all with everything. I mean, those are two things that knowledge is power. You're just able to like step forward and say, okay, to make a better choice, I do this.
Yes.
So rather than guzzling weird shakes with all sorts of weird stuff, I'm going to text you the ingredient list because now I'm just curious.
Okay.
I'm going to give
Okay.
you a hint though. It was the cheaper kind of way.
Well,
So
we'll look at it.
who knows? All right. So if you're curious, you can go to balancedbodymedical.com and we'll have a whole little list of things there and talk about the 15-minute call that's completely free. You get
Yeah.
on with the Sherri, get to explain a little bit about what you're doing and worries that you might have or questions that you want to run through on the front end just to see if this is a good sort of partnership for
Yep.
you.
Yep. We'll go from there.
And you don't have to only be in Omaha, right? Anybody can call
Correct.
you.
Yeah. That's right. You can give me a call. We can talk. We can do a discovery call. We can see. We can do, everything can be telehealth. Um, everything can be sent out to you, and everything can be telehealth depending on what direction we go. Right. Some things
Yeah.
are scheduled drugs, they're called, and you'd need to come visit me at least once a year for those. But
Yeah.
the majority of it could definitely be telehealth as well.
So Jeff in Wyoming, we're talking to you. No, I'm
That's
just
right.
kidding. I made that up. I don't know, Jeff. But we'll be talking more. What's up and coming for us this year? I mean, what are things that are top of mind for you, Sherri, that we're going to be running through? We have a whole list that we've talked about as ideas. Do you want to throw one or two out, or should we keep it under our hat?
I think we should, one of the things, I do have a gentleman that's going to be coming on that will be talking to us about how he learned the hard way, right? How he figured it out um, on his own and it worked, right? But it took him a little bit longer. It was a little bit tougher road. Um, and when I talked to him about it, I thought that was very, very interesting. People need to hear this because this is somebody that's been through it
Mhm.
and has been through it without any assistance. And could talk about how nice it would have been if he'd have known this in the beginning instead of struggling and then making this change and trying this and that and finally hitting it, which is why he's starting to do a podcast as well to talk about this and all these wonderful things he's figured out to share with people, to give them a direction to go.
Love it. Can't wait to talk to him.
Yeah. So that'll be coming up.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time then.
All right. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Sherri.
Find more information about Balanced Body Medical at balancedbodymedical.com. Sign up for your free 15-minute consultation with Sherri and look for information about her weight loss program.